Minister, how are you today?
I'm good, yeah. Thanks. How about you?
Very good.
Thank you.
Good. Appreciate all the work that you do. I mean, if there's anything that we should be investing in this province, it's education, because it will definitely have a huge impact on our economy in the future, our healthcare, our climate, and all things related to, I think, the quality of life of Albertans. And so it's deeply important. It's deeply important to my constituents, and I thank your staff, because it's a hard job, and education is something that's always growing and moving. And also want to give you some kudos. You've always taken the time to stop with me in the hallway to chat about my constituents and some of the issues there.
You have like the most kids of the whole province in that particular corner of Calgary. I don't know what they're doing down there. They produce a lot of kids.
We have lots of fun. Sure. Let me put it that way. All right. Minister, I've got some questions about the capital plan, and I'm sure you're not surprised about this.
Yeah.
I've noticed some discrepancies between the CBE's capital priorities and the capital plan coming out of this budget. Can you provide the rationale for not following the Calgary Board of Education's recommendation on their capital priorities?
Well, I think we did. They actually made a late submission moving some of their top priorities around, right? So the last incarnation of the Calgary Board of Education's capital priority, I think it pretty much reflected the choices that we made on the top end, right? They're numbered. Well, yeah. I mean, they. Can you just point to which one we're talking about? Yeah. So they had. I don't even know what year this is or anything. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I mean, we did make an adjustment to reflect where they wanted to go in the last few weeks before budget. So I made the appropriate changes to it as well to mine. So I make decisions on capital based on, geography and imminent need. Sometimes there's health and safety, and then legal things as well in terms of francophone schools, enrollment pressure, and so forth. So. Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, I don't have the list right in front of me of the Calgary projects and so forth, but
right. If you look at their capital plan from last year, it was the exact same capital plan from last year versus this year, and obviously
but they made some they made some changes in the last few weeks before they submitted, and we reflected that. We actually did some switching, and we did do that. So, for example, the North High School in Coventry, I think it's called, right, is a reflection of a change they made towards the end to want that on their list. So we did it.
So does your ministry maintain your own kind of capital priority list in addition to the ones that are provided by school boards?
We have an unfunded list, right? A larger unfunded list that, again, is fluid based on developing issues around, like, say, health and safety. Like you have a school in Delia that was going to fall down, and so we, and it moved up really fast when we heard that. And or Drayton Valley, he's gone. Suddenly we found out there was really imminent problems. So we have a funded unfunded list that's available, and it's pretty fluid. Like we allow, I think, the school boards to submit to us now more than how many times a year now?
Twice a year.
Twice a year, right? And then even in between, if they want to do that.
Right.
Okay. So we're just digging through paper here. This is the Calgary modernization and new lists. Yeah. Okay. So this is the most up-to-date one. Mm-hmm. Okay. So right now they have, for new schools, they got Auburn Bay at the top of their list, Buffalo Rubbing Stone School, Calgary New Elementary School, and then Coventry Hills, right? So did we cover those off in this? Yeah.
Yeah, so they're
complete design. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So we've hit them pretty good, even quite deep into their Calgary list. We've either have them on design or being built. So
right. In the 2019 through 2022 capital plan, identified the Auburn Bay Middle School as their second priority this year. However, the 2018 provincial budget provided a build design funding.
Yeah.
So what's the government's rationale for providing build funding for those schools over other high priority projects in Calgary?
Well, I mean, I was working with a Treasury Board direction to we were building quite a lot, and then as the economy starts to recover, to bring down my building a little bit, right? And so I've thought of a clever way to keep people understanding that something is going to happen, which is to provide money for design, right? And so you can judge me on my actions. I did it last year with the Lethbridge School, and it is now on its way to being built, right? So the design money should be a clear direction of the intention to build that building. We're going to do it. Same with the North High School Coventry one. It's very expensive to build high schools, but you can take that to the bank that we will build it.
Right. Can you give me an approximate timeline of when you'll fund the whole thing for the Auburn Bay Middle School?
Well, again, I'm not going to do out-of-cycle budget announcements at this particular table, but I mean,
would it be fair to say based on past precedents?
So submission April 1st, fiscal year, they can update in September. I mean, unless, maybe the board takes it off the list, but I don't think they would. I mean, you have such an enormous pressure. They already gave this, CBE gave us their 19 list on April Fool's Day. So, I mean, that one's, there it is, right? And so I think it's looking pretty good. And then plus we, Auburn Bay is super high priority because of the tremendous growth down there. And
right. Yeah. And so based on past practice, would it be fair to say that school will likely receive full funding in the next cycle? You mentioned the Lethbridge School.
Yeah, exactly. Based on the instructions I've given my team and the history of my decision making based on design and then build, yes.
Right.
Yes.
And just again to reiterate, you're right. There is a ton of pressure. The schools that were announced, even when we were the government, and some that you have announced are basically at capacity now, and parents are having to go into a lottery system, which you can imagine is not very fun.
No, it wasn't. It's not great. No,
Yeah, and that Auburn Bay Middle School will definitely relieve a lot of that pressure. It's very important.
I'm so aware of it, and I've been down there a couple of times, even with you, right? And it's quite jaw-dropping to see. I mean, families are looking for affordable single-family homes, and that's where they can still get one, right? And so, I mean, good for them. We have to reflect the choices that young families are making.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. So my colleague from Calgary, McKay-Nose Hill, has also expressed some concerns about how the capital plan is being applied in the community of Evanston. They're desperate need of a new middle school as well, but it doesn't appear that they'll be getting one. How is your ministry and the CBE working to gather feedback from communities like Evanston and all communities really about their pressures? How do you gauge the need?
Well, I mean, I rely on each school board to provide. They have the best information. They give us submissions, and when we have ongoing discussions with those, I have a capital division, right? So there's someone here today, and they have individual conversations with CBE, and so based on that question that you just gave me, we can certainly take a look and see where CBE is in regards to that school in Calgary, Nose Hill.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
So just kind of shifting gears now, just around health in schools. After reviewing your business plan, I only found one reference to health and education, a reference to your school nutrition plan. And I think this is a huge missed opportunity because the physical and mental health of all students, but as teachers as well, has a significant impact on educational performance. And your business plan talks about making sure students have access to education.
Yes.
And poor health can be a significant barrier to that access. So I'd like to start on the subject of mental health. Does your department work with health and the school authorities to institute mental health supports for students?
Yes, and if I can, sometimes these things are not immediately obvious. Our mental health budgeting and so forth is through the inclusive education line item that we have on our business plan. I mean, I can give you the exact line here in a second, right? But in regards to us working in cooperation with health and so forth, we have the regional collaborative service delivery system, and we're working with children's services there again as well. And so the number on that, and it's called regional collaborative service delivery because we pick a sort of a hub school board to help to quarterback it, and then it moves out from there, right? And so the budget of RCSD last year was, or this year I should say, was $65 million, 366, almost $66 million, which is about a 1% thing. And so, they work with kids with complex needs, including like speech language therapy, OT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and mental health supports. Now, I'll be the first one to say that we need to open this up considerably, considering the anecdotal evidence of increased stress and mental health issues and increased complexity of student needs in this regard in our schools. We know that kids are more stressful at a younger age, and so I'm quite frankly looking at both individual buttressing of counseling and so forth, looking for innovative ways by which we can perhaps provide support, like through the Children's Help Network that provides a texting and phone thing, and then also looking at school-wide mental health initiatives, to look for some of these promising things like mindfulness and peer support and things like that. So sort of school-wide initiatives where they have a year-long theme, which is helping each other, mental health supports, stuff like that.
I'm glad to hear that. But all equally important, we need to have healthy educators. To have healthy kids.
It's true.
And so does your department collect any information on teacher morale or job satisfaction? And do you have any numbers?
Yeah, I mean, we get information from school boards, and I know that the Teachers Association collects information on the state of the workforce, and so forth. So we do have I think a report that will be coming out pretty soon on how people are satisfaction and so forth, that is helpful too. But again, it's a moving target, because we see, younger teachers demonstrating, different stresses that we perhaps haven't seen as well. And people also show, they vote with their feet, right? Like where we see more young teachers not sticking out the career because of the pressures on the job. And so, I'm really concerned about that, because of course, young professional qualified teachers not sticking and getting the full use of their skills after 10 years of service is not great.
Right. Do you have a timeline on that report? And then
I have the one that I was just looking at. We have I think a version of it comes out to. Oh yeah, and the Alberta Teachers Association also has what they call their Malatest survey, which is available now online. You can take a look at that.
Okay. So, are you looking at any other initiatives for monitoring and improving educator health?
Well, I found it promising. The Classroom Improvement Fund that we negotiated as part of the collective agreement with the teachers the last time, is perhaps showing us some positive direction in how we can consult and empower teachers to make choices to improve classrooms conditions for kids, but for themselves too, right? To make sure that that they have more supports, that there's pressure points of stress can be looked at, and so I did include that classroom improvement line in this current budget, and we will move forward on how we can do that. You see some other school boards showing some promise in collaborative support, and then the whole high school redesign concept is really a global way by which you can have increased supports for teachers in high schools. And so these are areas that, again, I'm not going to suggest that we've solved the problem by any means, but these are some areas that I'm looking at that have shown promise.
Right. And so in your curriculum review, are you looking at any is there any discussion about including more mental health discussions in the classroom, understanding it better?
Yes. Yes. I think thank you for bringing that up. I think that it's incumbent upon us to have specific curriculum outcomes, and part of this new curriculum, the reason we're doing all subject or 6 subject areas in all grades is that we can look for cross-curricular competencies, right? By which you can have something in social studies and then in science and then in English that can kind of follow a certain theme, right? And that amongst those things can be, building a strong environment for physically and mentally healthy society, right? I mean, I think citizenship is a strong theme, a thread that we're following through curriculum, and part of citizenship is that sense of community and caring and sharing in a supportive manner, both inside and outside school.
So in our office in Calgary Southeast, we've been getting a rising number of parents complaining about their children and their health issues, so their physical health issues, and diabetes being one of them.
Yes, yes.
And I would imagine there's other common health issues with kids with specific needs throughout the entire system. And so, and obviously parents would like to see that, teachers are trained to deal with these things so that these kids can have, normal education. So what training is available currently for teachers to recognize, chronic health conditions in students?
Well, I'd have to get back to you on that. I mean, the one thing that I have been pursuing actively is around diabetes, right? Working with a very excellent advocacy group for, ensuring that we have training and capacity to deal with type 1 diabetes in class, in schools. And so, I mean, if that's an example of other ways by which we can have teachers and professionals in schools trained and to make observation around chronic illness, I think that
so is there a possible discussion that could happen with the ATA? Because I recognize teachers already have enough on their plate, but any teacher that has maybe
I mean, I'm really
some
sensitive
cross
about
training,
that.
And maybe there's some extra per diem for taking on that responsibility.
Yeah, I mean,
sort of things.
I'm always sensitive of adding things to, teachers' expectation, right, and without being supported. But at the same time, I mean, our schools are often the first point of contact with a family and a child and the services that they might need, right? That are not just for education. There could be a health need, there could be a children's service need and stuff like that. So I think that more collaboration with Alberta Health really helps too as well. So
does your department keep statistics on certain types of diseases that kids may have, very common ones like diabetes? You had mentioned that, epilepsy, and those sort of things that are becoming, barriers to, to access to education?
Well, we have that information, available to us to some degree. Do we actually? No. Yeah. I mean, but Alberta Health Services can help us. And so, I mean, we know, for example, a general idea of how many type 1 diabetes kids we have in the schools. And so, because we've been working with an advocacy group with that to try to address supports. But, I mean, that's not a bad idea, right, to work closer, because we are, of course, again, my first comment about us being the first point of contact with the public service in general is through the schools. And so, perhaps we can help to work with Children's Services and Alberta Health Services to work on that. I mean, you always have to be mindful of privacy, right? But then at the same time, if we have a service that we can offer to kids, and then we don't want to exclude them from the ability to access that.
Great. So I just want to move on to Indigenous schooling, and I'm happy to see that your business plan mentions you want to achieve better educational outcomes for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students, mentioned in Outcome 2 on page 54 of the business plan. So I have some concerns about how the government actually intends to accomplish that. So Key Strategy 2.1 talks about making sure all students, teachers, and school leaders learn about the FNMI perspectives. So I assume that's part of that's going to be accomplished in the curriculum review, but what specifically in the budget is contributing to achieve that? It's a huge undertaking, but I think it's absolutely essential to have cultural awareness training for teachers in our system. And so, globally we built a First Nations, Métis, and Inuit budget, right? That's
approximately $50 million, right, to help with programming for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students. And then, we have as well an additional $37 million for students on reserve. Now, in terms of the teachers' training specifically and their cultural awareness training, it's built with
the standards.
Pardon me?
It's within the standards.
It's within the standards. Right. Okay. Yeah. We are moving on that now, and it's not a small. I will get you that number that's associated with that. I don't see it coming my way right at this moment.
So in key strategy 2.3 says that you want to increase accountability for FNMI funding provided to school authorities. So in what ways do you believe that school authorities are possibly not being currently held accountable in regards to that funding? And again, exactly where in your budget are you going to do that by increased funding? Where are you going to do increased accountability?
Sorry, that's fine. Accountability, of course, implies that we're seeing targeted money move to where it is meant to go, right? And so
I hesitate to interrupt. However, the time allotted for this portion of the meeting has expired.